I feel like the trip here to Iowa and
state of Iowa,
to the great state of Iowa, it's really a culmination of, honestly, almost 10 years of research. So Sam is adopted, and when we first met his birth mom, we knew that he was exposed to certain substances in utero that would cause dependency. So we didn't know the full extent of what the exposure was, but we had enough of an idea that we knew to start reading and educating ourselves on it before he was born. And then once he was born, we found that the exposure was significant. And his dependence was significant. So he spent about 5 weeks in the NICU going through withdrawal processes and all of that. So the name for that is neonatal abstinence syndrome, or NAS for short. So we started to try and find out, okay, what does NAS mean long-term for kids? Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of data on that. We know he was going to be at high risk for ADHD type symptoms. He could present as if he was on the autism spectrum. He could have difficulty with transitions, oppositional defiance disorder. So they basically give you a list of acronyms of everything to be aware of, but there's no recipe for how to help them or what they need or any of that. So, and with Sam, so we've started from the very beginning trying every different therapy that we thought might help. From the time he was an infant, we've done massage therapy, we've done sensory integration therapy. Now that he's school age, we've done specific therapies for dyslexia. We've tried diet. We've tried all kinds of things. And what was great as I've done my research and finally found you all and what you are doing for kids is that I feel like we've found the missing building block in all of the things that we've tried for Sam. And just in watching your videos, I tested him at home and was like, oh my gosh, ATNR, STNR. I'm probably saying it wrong, but I could see all of those in him. And then as you described the symptoms that should be going along with it, I could check every box for what Sam was experiencing.
Yep. It's kind of crazy because like before I started looking at these reflexes a lot, like, 6 years ago, whatever that has been now, when I first learned them and I started testing them, it was like, I could literally take a history and they go this symptom, this and this symptom. And I'm like, well, I know they have this reflex, this reflex. It's so specific. It's really quite interesting. And then as, and something that relates back to that, a lot of people probably don't understand is like that these reflexes start developing inside the womb. So if there's a lot of chemical, dysfunction there because of exposures, that's going to change their nervous system and not allow a lot of these systems to develop appropriately. And when they get out, now they're already set back. These reflexes can't develop appropriately. And then you start seeing, a lot of times you don't notice any big deficits in the first year of life, but neurologically, there's signs there. There's these reflexes are there when they shouldn't be. And it just starts this lack of appropriate development as they mature. They don't have that solid foundation. But I know the initial exam was a little bit emotional for you, but describe that process as we went through that and what changes you saw.
Yeah. So our first day in, which, we'd done the virtual assessment with you. So we knew that these things were present, but then coming in and watching you actually do the assessments far better than what I could do in my living room. It was, we just saw those reflexes so distinctly. And so we came into this with so much hope that this would be the thing that would kind of help set Sam on the path that we know he should be on. So watching all of that there, and then I mentioned that we've done a lot of different therapies with him. So when he was 6, we took him to a physician that did sensory integration therapy, and she was an ophthalmologist, and we discovered that his brain was shutting off inputs from one of his eyes. So she diagnosed him with an amblyopia, and we did a lot of different therapies around that to try and correct it. But now that he's school age and reading, we didn't really know how that had progressed and where we were. We thought it was better, but when we came in and you put the glasses on him and then you did the string test and you saw right away he
was completely suppressed.
You just said he's suppressed in that eye. And I started texting my husband right away. And I was like, the amblyopia is still there. He's shutting off his left eye. And so I'm busy texting my husband to try and let him know what's going on. Meanwhile, I just see you over doing all of this with Sam. I thought you were still testing. I had no idea you were delivering therapy. And then you put the glasses back on him and he can read the entire first line.
Yeah, he stopped suppression.
And you looked at me, you said, it's the vestibular system we know how to fix this. And I was just like, whoa. So I couldn't believe that quickly it was identified and solved. I mean, there was a lot more work to do, but like just right there, you knew exactly what part of the brain to stimulate to make it function the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
and
crazy.
It was wild. And it was really and truly everything that we had hoped for coming into this.
Awesome. And, a lot of people don't realize, like, when it comes to the eyes, we work with so many different eye doctors, but there's so many foundational pieces that need to be developed for the eyes to actually develop and function well and work together. And that's why we get so many referrals from them. And then when they need vision therapy, we refer them out for vision therapy. But a lot of times by getting rid of the reflexes or getting their balance center stronger and more developed and getting proper alignment of their head, a lot of times a lot of those issues improve dramatically. So it's really cool when you get those changes right away.
Well, that was what's been interesting to learn is, in all the different things that we have tried, we weren't necessarily trying the wrong things. We were just trying them in the wrong order. Right. So we never had we just weren't aware of this. I wish there was more information out there for parents of kids. They have all of these developmental stages they say to watch out for, but in none of that are you educated on primitive reflexes. Right. And I think especially as an adoptive mom of a child with exposure, I would love for every adoptive mom to be aware of this stuff going in. Because if it's amazing how quickly it can be addressed and how much benefit it is for them. Yeah. So,
and I don't know that I've ever seen a kid that, well, put it back this way, we see kids that have difficulties and are struggling, obviously, but like I don't think I've ever seen a kid that's adopted, and especially when it's had drug exposure, that doesn't still have primitive reflexes. So it is a huge aspect, and I think it's one of the most overlooked aspects of healthcare. But now the awesome thing is, like, especially in the last 3 years, there's been tons of research on primitive reflexes in relation to ADHD and autism and learning disabilities, and which has been really cool to start seeing some of that coming out. So I think hopefully that'll change, but
I hope so. Well, that was one of the things that was really cool is I found you on TikTok and started watching these videos. And then I moved over and started doing just Google searches and looking at medical journals. And it was like everything you were saying in your videos is validated in the journals. It's just not, it doesn't seem like it's broadly adopted in standard medicine and pediatrics. Yep. And so that was the great thing is I was like, man, the evidence is there. This seems like it should work. And then actually to be here now on our 4th day and I'm going, oh man, it works.
It really works. In most cases, it's very quick.
Yeah. So. And it works fast. Yeah. It's just a matter of knowing the neurological system and what to stimulate. So
the right order of care and the right therapies used at the right time is the most important aspect. So
I would love to speak to how different Sam has reacted to the therapy we've done here versus what we tried to do at the other physician's office too.
Like that.
So yeah. So one of the things that has been so great about this week is just the environment in general. As soon as we walked in the door, the staff was welcoming. I didn't have to introduce ourselves. They knew Sam's name as soon as we walked in the door. It was like, you're finally here. We're so happy to see you kind of thing. And he got a tour immediately and got to see everything that was going on. And, we've done different therapies with Sam over the years. And when we tried to do some of the sensory integration therapy and some of that, he was just very resistant to the whole process because it all felt very clinical. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like hey, we're going to come over here and have fun and play this game. And he wanted me right next to him. It was hard for him to even engage in some of the stuff because he wanted to be right where I was. Yeah. And here he got a tour. He learned where the water is and where the toys are and all of that stuff. And then as soon as we were done with the initial assessment, I couldn't believe he was out the door with the therapist and wasn't looking over his shoulder for where I was. And by the time I caught up, he was well into the games and all of that and had a great time. And every day this week, he's been ready to come back. Yeah. So
the rock wall helps a lot. It's a big bargaining tool.
The rock wall helps a lot. Everybody on the staff, though, they treat it like you're here to have fun, not you're here to have therapy. Yeah, exactly. And I think that attitude, especially for a 9-year-old boy, goes a long way. Yeah, and they notice when he needs a snack break, and nothing is so regimented that he can't still be a 9-year-old boy while he's here, which is fantastic.
Yep, and that's always the goal is, we get a lot of therapy done, but the nice thing is we have so many cool tools that they feel like they're playing while we're doing, and we're able to get therapy on kids that honestly until we started implementing that, I would have never thought we could have done with a lot of kids, So yeah, and the staff is awesome, which is a very big blessing for the practice.
Yeah, because I had watched videos, so I knew what to expect, but Sam had no idea what to expect. As far as he knew, we were flying to Iowa to see a doctor. And so I think that he was pleasantly surprised by the entire thing.
Good.
We've noticed several things over the years that, in terms of behaviors that might be just a little bit out of the norm with Sam. But once he started in school programs, he's a super obedient kid that wants to please and wants to make everyone around him happy. But he's really struggled with some of the processes in school. Sitting still has been a huge challenge for him. And then as he was starting to learn letters and reading, we had him tested for different learning differences, and he's been diagnosed with dyslexia and ADHD. And we've also seen some memory deficits. So we started a program called Orton Gilliam that's geared towards dyslexia students, and it's been wonderful for him. But even as he's learning the letters and his phonemic awareness develops, when he sits down to read, it's such a struggle. He fights almost every time we have to sit down and do reading, and there's so much fatigue that goes along with it for him. And I've asked so many, teachers and clinicians and therapists and optometrists, why does he rub his eyes like that when he reads? Why does he yawn? The second he starts reading, he's just yawning and exhausted. And so I feel like, some of those struggles can be addressed with this.
Yeah. And the labs that we ran really open our eyes up to why that is. And his energy production systems that we ran in that organic acids test, that is really what tells us that of why. It shows how you're breaking down carbs and fats and proteins and converting that to energy, how your Krebs cycle, your mitochondria, which is what produces energy for our cells, is functioning, which was on the low end, how your neurotransmitters are functioning, which were again on the low end. All of those things can play into that fatigue. And so that's why we incorporate dietary stuff and supplemental stuff to help until that system gets fully developed, giving some extra support so that they're not fatiguing out all the time. And also diet, just like we saw yesterday with when he had gluten, he was so much more tired yesterday in comparison to when he doesn't. And that's just a food sensitivity that also can play into this. So
yeah. And as a parent, that's so encouraging to know, okay, this isn't something where I'm not expecting the right behaviors, or we're not training the right behaviors in our kids, so that, why is he so resistant to schoolwork and homework and all of that? And you always wonder, okay, am I just not parenting this the right way? But then to see, okay, no, there's things going on in his system that are causing all of this. So it's such a relief to know some of that.
Yeah. And, obviously there's parenting concerns, and there's different ways to parent that, are more ideal for certain kids and whatnot. But it's pretty rare when I find a kid that truly just wants to misbehave. Like, there's almost always underlying foundational neurological energy production issues that are there, or physical or physiological true issues that are there. And once those get corrected, it's, number one, it's way easier. But number two, it's, from a parent's perspective, they know what things they need to do from a parenting perspective, and also understanding that a lot of these there's a true reason for it. And once that gets corrected, it's night and day difference for how easy it is for that parent. So
yeah, it sets them up to be able to be on their best behavior. And Sam's such a eager to please kid. So when he doesn't, he's disappointed in himself. And it's kind of heartbreaking to know that there's things in a system that are kind of working against him being able to behave the way he wants to. So all of that's really encouraging. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing the long-term effects of some of this.
Yeah, he's going to be a completely different kid 6 months from now. It's cool.
I know. I'm excited.